Welcome to our Tweed Townhall Presents podcast. The title of this show is We Are All in This Together. I'd like to introduce our podcasters, my daughter, Janelle,
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening.
my son, Jeff,
Hello.
and myself, Patti. We will be discussing all issues related to mental health.
So we have both professional experience, with mom, and you.
I have a
Jeff.
little bit of both.
I have my own mental health
Professional.
struggles that I'll be talking about. But mom, what is your background with the mental health system?
Well, I worked as a nurse on a mental health floor.
For how long?
Back in the mid-1970s.
It was 1970s. Was a very different time back then.
Mom, was that a mental health floor that you worked on?
Yes, it was.
What about personal experience with mental health? What was your first experience with that?
My first experience with that was your father, Jim. We were high school sweethearts. We dated for 4 years, got married. Then when he was 22 and a half, he was diagnosed with manic depressive illness.
Well, you could also talk about what led up to that diagnosis also.
Well, let me ask you this.
Was he exhibiting symptoms?
When you first started dating, was there any signs
No signs of
that he had any kind of mental health disorder?
No, only one, just before we got married.
They say a lot of the times it's something that triggers
Stress.
For the more severe mental health diagnoses, something triggers it.
There's always a severe trigger most times.
Yeah.
But I remember Dad himself telling us he was working how many hours back then, Mom? Like he was working at the YMCA.
He was working 80 hours a week.
So that alone right there is lack of sleep, which lack of sleep is huge for any mental health disorder.
He was a program director for the YMCA.
Yeah, overworking yourself could be somewhat of a trigger.
And he broke down.
Catalyst.
He broke down.
And how old were you when you got married?
23.
And he got his first episode of having bipolar when? At what age?
22 and a half.
So a little before that.
Before we got married.
I'm just trying to see if there was anything to do with the pressure maybe of getting married. Had anything to do with it.
Well, that might have too, but the pressure of work was a big factor.
More so.
Then once he was sick, exhibiting all these other symptoms, he talked about his childhood a lot.
Well, the point we're trying to make is there is usually some kind of major trauma or trigger that, that's the beginning of your mental health diagnosis.
Well, there's a big genetic factor too, which we'll get into that in future episodes. But that's also a big factor in any type of mental health.
Being genetically predisposed to it.
The most important thing to is when you're dealing with a person that has some kind of disorder or mental illness, you, as their loved one, have to be an advocate for them.
That's the big, big thing with any mental health illness is...
That's major, yeah.
Having someone to advocate for you, because we have stories to tell about this very topic that we will discuss further in future episodes. But for now, we just want to do an introduction and let you know exactly who we are.
The major point with that, though, before we move on from that, with being your own advocate, is if you're not your own advocate and you don't do your own research and ask around, you're potentially missing out on the best possible care you can get for either you or your loved ones or a friend, whoever it might be. And that's why you have to make it a point to be your own, mental health advocate.
So, Mom, you and Jeff both have professional experience. Jeff, you'll talk about your professional experience, but my experience is more personal because I've dealt with a lot of struggles with my own mental health ever since I don't even know if I want to say since I was a kid, because I remember my dad having manic episodes at the age of 4. Mm-hmm. We always talk about how he was having an episode and we had to go across the street to a neighbor's house because an ambulance had to come and take him to the hospital. And I was only 4 years old when that happened. And I have vivid memories of that day. And I remember calling Dad a monster because I just saw him across the street just in the middle of an episode,
And the neighbor said, he's not a monster, honey. He's just sick.
Yeah, the neighbor was amazing. comforting me because I didn't know what was happening at that age, you know? So
How old did you say you were?
I was 4. But
Which
that's
brings up a
still
point of having somebody in your family that has, that type of mental health diagnosis, and they're experiencing it, and you're witnessing it.
like that. I feel like that was my very first experience with a loved one going through something like
You
that.
could say that's the beginning for you of your
I was
trauma,
exposed to it
your
at
trauma with
first.
mental
Right,
health,
right.
and you didn't even know what was going on. You're just a little kid,
Yeah, but and then there was another time that we always talk about when we were older. I think I was around 7 at this point, but it's the leprechaun story.
I wanted
I
to
was
keep my
told
children safe.
it was during St. Patrick's Day, and my dad was having an episode during St. Patrick's Day. Jeff, do you remember this?
No.
I feel like I'm the
He was
only
just
one who
little.
remembers this.
He was just
My
a little
only
tyke.
memory
But
is of you telling the story. but
really?
yeah, I don't remember it.
But I remember my mom said we had to go into it was my brother's room at the time. She said we have to go in here because the leprechauns are going to leave us gold. And if we're not quiet in here, then they're
I
not going to
said-
leave us any gold.
I said, shh, quiet.
So
'cause the
my mom,
leprechaun will
yeah,
come.
she was saying, you guys got to be really quiet. And here I am. I'm like, something's going on. Like I knew something was up, but I give credit to my mom for just staying strong that whole time because it's not an easy thing to do with. You have 4 kids at the time. So, but then I'll get into more of my own mental health struggles as we get further into
I have to
the
say,
episodes, but
that's one small example of
yeah.
the way a parent or just a caretaker, whoever they might be,
Hmm.
does. Like, they have to do things like that in order to protect the vulnerable people in the family,
Right.
so to speak. Like you were her kid, like she
Mhm.
felt like she had to protect you.
Yeah.
So she created that story. Imagine how many other people out there do something similar when they're experiencing a mental health
Well,
crisis.
because we had to probably explain like a person experiencing mania is not that person. Because our dad he had a heart of gold. He was the most
Mhm.
kind, loving person when he was stable. But when he would get into his mania, it just, you guys can add on to
So
this.
in that
It's-
situation, mom was trying to protect you from witnessing that because she didn't want you having that memory of him,
Yeah.
just one of the times at least.
For you people out there in podcast land, my husband always reminded me of General Hospital character Sonny Corinthos.
Oh, Maurice
Maurice
Bernard.
Bernard was diagnosed with the same issues.
Yeah, he's a very strong advocate for bipolar and mental health struggles. He's an amazing advocate. I
Which
just
coincidentally has a similar physical look.
Look,
as
yeah,
that kid.
right. He
handsome.
does, yeah.
Which is just funny,
Jeff, do you want to get into your professional, your schooling?
Well, I having experienced, the mental health stuff in our family, all throughout my, say early teen years into like early 20s, I always had the passion at that point in my life to study psychology. So I ended up studying psychology at UB, did that for a couple years, and then ended up working without naming specific companies, worked for a company in Buffalo as the facilities coordinator, which was I got to experience the mental health
Like-
programs without being actually in,
Yeah.
providing the counseling and all
Did
that.
you enjoy that job?
It was
Was it stressful?
it was different, but yes, I definitely enjoyed it because
Yeah.
you got to go all around Western New York, and
Right.
seeing how all different programs operate. And then shortly after that, I got into a position where I was considered a counselor. And that's when things got more real as far as
Mhm.
hearing everybody's story. And then just all the different, mental health struggles that people had in that program. So it just all contributes to the experience that you have,
Mhm.
After talking to people, because we had to, do our sessions a certain amount of times per month, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of them would be talking to me just casually outside of our sessions, and they would say how much it helped them, but not only that, how much the stuff that we talked about
Mhm.
was I'll just say some of them said that I was one of the best counselors they had.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Like
really?
of what
Oh,
the
wow.
stuff, how we would talk,
Yeah.
during the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those other people probably just go by the book. You were more personable probably with them.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Which comes along, that's all a part of, like, you have to have a connection with the person that is supposed to be your counselor.
Well, Jeff, I feel like you have a special, like you have personal experience
It's
as
like
well.
it's like
So,
at least in regards to drug and alcohol counseling, a lot of the, I'm not saying this is a requirement, but a lot of the people that end up getting jobs as a drug and alcohol counselor have experience with drug and alcohol,
right.
abuse, or somehow in some way they have experience with that. So when it comes to mental health counseling, having the background of going through a lot of it on your own, either with family members or friends or whoever, or yourself, does help with your ability to help people through that, and when you're counseling them.
Yeah, and getting treatment is a huge battle. And I know, Mom, we were talking about this earlier. How did you know that Dad needed help?
Well, because after we came back from our honeymoon, he still had a job, but then he did something at work, and I think he lost his job for whatever reason it was. And he didn't have a job. Then he had the stress of being married with no job. Then he wasn't sleeping.
When did he have when he went to Pennsylvania? Was that during that time?
That was years later.
Oh, that was
years later.
Years later. Okay.
We already had 2 or 3 kids at the time.
When did you first realize that Dad did need help for what was going on with him?
Well, when we came back from our honeymoon, he lost his job. So he was laid off, I believe. Then he had the stress of no income.
So he was completely stressed out.
Yeah, he
at
was
this
stressed
time.
out, yes.
And he couldn't cope with it.
So then he started to lose sleep. And that is a big issue.
Sleep is a
with
huge
people
factor.
with this illness. He hadn't been diagnosed yet, though, but he was brought in through the emergency room with the police, and the doctors transferred him to another hospital because they couldn't keep him here very long at the local hospital. Well, he ended up escaping that hospital. It was a lockdown.
There's definitely a story there.
It was a lockdown
This
hospital.
is a story that we've heard for
His name was on the radio. Be on the lookout for this person. And he ended up going back to the original hospital he was at.
The security
wasn't
of
that great.
hospitals back then wasn't.
I
what it is
mean,
now.
what was security like on
doors
those
were
floors at
locked,
that time?
but he
They
broke
were
a
locked.
window and unlocked
Oh,
the
he
door.
broke a window? I didn't know that.
Broke a window, got stitches in his arm. He had the scar the rest of his life.
I didn't know that.
And he was walking around with his
around,
hospital gown on, right?
Got a cab and came home.
In his hospital gown?
In his hospital
And
gown,
he came
yeah.
home.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
So I called the police and an ambulance, and they brought him back to the local hospital.
So then did
And
he
he
get
was
admitted
there.
then?
He was in and out as a patient for 3 months.
Which begs the the thought of, thank God something like that. Like, I'm sure it happens nowadays where
Yeah,
everybody
back then-
would have video of that.
Yeah,
Can you imagine
Yeah,
No,
nowadays they would
your
have
video of
There's
yourself
a whole new world.
escaping a
today
hospital
with-
and you're in a mental
yeah,
health
that's
in the middle of your manic
It
phase
adds
of
another
some
layer.
sort, and it's all on video.
yeah.
Like
This
back
was-
then, that wasn't a worry.
This was back in 1975. And back then, there were many more psychiatrists than there are now. So you had better help to help your loved one.
Well, this is gonna be
back like even 20 years ago, whenever a loved one was struggling, we would have no issue getting them admitted
no,
to the
because
hospital
your
to get help.
psychiatrist admits
None
you.
at all.
We're gonna cover
That has changed drastically in the last 5 years.
We're gonna have to focus this on at least 1 or 2 episodes where we talk about how the care over the years has
Has
changed.
It's dwindled
And just
dramatically.
the ease of how you would be able to get help back then versus now, and who's available for when you do need help, all that stuff. We'll cover that.
Because there's so many people out there who don't have the resources to get help for their loved one.
They don't
And
know where to turn.
They don't.
If you don't have
and-
experience in this field, you're lost.
That's one of the big reasons. That's actually the reason why we wanted to start this podcast, because we saw so many other families struggling with this. And how are you supposed to help your loved one if there's no resources for them? So if you're listening to this, that we can provide that for you.
Which is why we titled this episode,
We're all
or
in
the
this
show, We're
together.
all in this together.
Because it's true.
We want it to be a
we
resource
are.
for people out there that aren't sure exactly what the next step is or
Right.
what resources they have available to them.
And you're definitely not alone. There's people out there that are going through the same exact thing that you are going through.
Mm-hmm.
The first
So always-
resource I want to give to those people out there that may need help, you can always call 988. It's a mental health hotline.
So 988, when you call them, do they advise you on what to do?
They do.
And that's
They-
national, right?
It's a national, and they give you local facilities that you may be interested in.
Another thing I want to talk about is how there's not enough beds anymore to help all the people that need help.
For inpatient care.
I personally feel like every hospital that exists should have a mental health floor, but I don't know if that's possible, but that's ideal.
Well, that's another thing too that we got to address at some point in the future of the availability of, that hospitals have, which is also related to funding, which goes all the way up the line to government funding, either whether it be the state or federal. What can be done to help make changes in that area,
Janelle, as your mother, would you want to share any more of your feelings about your mental health struggles through the years?
Sure.
That
mean,
I was
like-
totally unaware of until recently.
Well, yeah, because
She
I
hid it from all of us.
I did. And I like looking back on it, I shouldn't have hid it from anybody, but I was just too embarrassed to talk about it. But like I said, I had my first memory of mental health at 4. And then, dad struggled all throughout his, 20s and 30s. How many times was dad hospitalized? Do you know, like,
If I had to venture to guess, it would be at least 30 times.
really? Oh my
Yeah. So what
goodness.
was
Through
the
the
pattern of how often Janelle? I mean, because Janelle's talking, like specifically her had to deal with that stuff going on with dad. Was it every 2 years, or is it more often than that?
Probably.
Well,
every couple
I feel like
years.
me and Jimmy have a lot more memories of that
You guys do.
than you and Jennifer do.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Jennifer are our other siblings.
But as dad got older, they were more few and far between.
Yeah.
They weren't as often. It was more when he was in his
But
20s.
so I'm a highly emotional person. They will both tell you that I'm a highly emotional person. I don't cope well with life, I guess.
All
But-
the empaths out there can relate, because Janelle is definitely
I'm the empath.
big time
I mean, I
empath.
feel like we're all empaths, but you guys cope a lot better than I do,
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I compartmentalize everything.
But when I got to high school, I had a really rough time because I started getting bullied by classmates. And then there was some other really dark stuff happening all through like freshman, sophomore year, like in high school and in my personal life. And I just didn't know how to cope. So I started doing these rituals that I didn't tell you guys about till years later. There was one I would have to like, when I heard someone coming into the house, I don't know if you guys do.
Are you
know
referring
this?
to like the OCD stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I heard one of you guys coming into the house, I would have to open the closet door like 12 times
Mm-hmm.
and shut it again before you guys got into the house, or something bad would happen if I didn't do it. And then I used to like read a paragraph like 10 times or until it felt safe to like move on to the next paragraph. And that's just how my anxiety was manifesting itself at that time,
Mhm.
But I didn't talk to anybody about it until later on. And I have regrets about that.
Did you ever write about it?
It probably came out in my writing, but I
not,
didn't. I didn't.
specifically writing to explain that you were just writing for.
I didn't talk about it directly, but it probably indirectly I probably did without even realizing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But so then that faded away as my stress faded away, So
By the way, Janelle has a degree in communications, and she loves to write. She's an English major.
well, thank you.
Which is
Mom.
the writing
That's why the
reference.
writing reference
That's
came in.
the writing reference, yeah. But like as a teen at that time, I was just way too embarrassed to confide in anybody about that. And it affected me. It affected my mental health. And it really, when you're going through stuff like that at a young age, it really gets into your psyche, you know, and you find ways to cope. And I didn't learn until later it was called obsessive compulsive disorder.
Right.
Is what I was doing, you know. So
which begs the question of like when you're that young, like you said, you find ways to cope.
right.
Like a lot of us develop our coping skills at young ages, depending on what we're going through. So we don't necessarily know that you should develop positive coping skills. You just do whatever you can do
Yeah, like
to
yeah,
feel
Whatever
better
makes
at the
you
time.
comfortable, yeah.
exactly.
And that's how you develop
Yeah.
all kinds of different coping skills, whether it be good or bad, you know?
Yeah, so I've always had I feel like I've always had anxiety. It just didn't really manifest itself
Mm-hmm.
in a severe way. I mean, it kind of did through my teens, but then it went away because I wasn't as stressed, you know? Like all through my 20s, I was in college and I really wasn't stressed when I was going to college for my undergrad and graduate degrees. But then I got to my 30s and a lot of things happened to my 30s. There were like a domino effect. And then I ended up having a panic attack, which my panic attack was weird because I can't even really describe it. It felt like my arms were floating.
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you guys? I ever
Yes,
tell you
you have.
this?
At times, yeah.
It felt like my arms were floating like off of my body. And I was like, what is happening to me? I thought I was dying, you know? So the next day I woke up and nothing seemed real. And then I realized there's a word for that too. It's called derealization.
Yes.
So at the time, I couldn't find anything on how I was feeling. So of course, I went to the doctor, got all the labs done. The labs were perfect except for vitamin D and B12 were off.
Which
But
that derealization you want to talk about in future
yeah, because
episodes also.
I know
We'll
a
go
lot
more
of
in
people
detail.
will suffer with that, but they
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was myself, you
Yeah.
know? It's hard to explain to somebody who's never experienced it, but it's like
Out of body experience.
it's like the world is not real.
Mhm.
Like this is the best way I can describe it. Like if you're standing in front of something that looks so amazing, like the Grand Canyon or like Niagara Falls, and you're like in
The
awe of it,
yeah.
like that feeling that you get is like it turns chronic. Like
And
that
you
feeling,
can't
like
really stop it.
you can't get it to go away because it's a form of anxiety, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely be talking about that in later episodes because that's a biggie for me because I still deal with it when I get really, really stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to say, when I was your age, because I'm a lot older than them, obviously, but I probably felt like anxious at times. But as I got older, I gained wisdom and I learned how to deal with things better.
Yeah, because you do learn coping skills that are like for me personally, I've learned healthy coping skills also along the way. So and that doesn't come by yourself. You have
I
to,
think
you
a
have
lot
to
of
do
that-
the, you have to do the
Experience.
work.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to do the work.
Your coping skills, I think, are a lot of it is personality based
That's true. Yeah.
as far as what you end
Jeff,
up
I feel like
developing.
Jeff has really good
'Cause,
coping skills.
like my mom.
Jeff, talk about
was
your
saying-
coping skills.
Well, no. What my mom was saying about what were you saying
Age, when I was younger, I had anxiety.
as
a
far
little
as like
bit.
developing ways to deal with it?
Yeah, you just learn how to deal
I
with
think I
things better
took after her in
from
that sense.
experience. Yeah.
As far as being
Yeah,
able to have like, oh, I'll just say rely on your positive coping skills
Right.
to deal with stress.
You and Mom have
And that, I think, like I said, it's based.
impeccable coping skills in my
Like
eyes.
you'll
you
attest
know?
to this, Janelle.
Like I'm a catastrophic thinker. Like I go right.
See,
to
now I
10.
used to
That's
be
where-
like
You
that,
know,
but I learned not to be that way because it just adds more stress.
Yeah, it does. It does.
That's what I was gonna say. You could attest to this, is you would say like in stressful situations with the family,
Mhm.
you would say that I'm way more calm
way more
going
calm.
through it as well as you, Mom.
See,
You are
now
too.
I have this idea to just let it go.
Yeah, she says that. a
But
lot.
try not
what I'm gonna say
Which-
though is that calmness is part of our coping skills.
Right.
To not
it is.
be so just overly angst
You're
about
level.
stuff.
You're level-headed in times of crisis.
And for you, Janelle, being
me, I am not so much.
being in that extreme like I don't know how would you describe it when you're going through stress, like that, like you're in more higher
Well,
level.
I just go to worst case scenario
Like,
immediately.
but that's
Like
a
I
coping skill.
can't. Is it?
It is. It's not considered a positive coping skill, but it's a coping skill. That's where you go to deal with stress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the differences in coping skills. You know, like it's all for everybody. It's different.
Right.
There's positive and negative.
I mean,
I'm more of a positive.
And the old,
but I appreciate that you guys are that way because you always are there to like remind me, like chill out. Like, I mean, even though I hate when you say chill out, it's really what I need to do. You know,
I'll say that, like the older you get, the more you realize you have to start developing more positive coping skills.
Right.
And it's hard to do that.
Exactly. It is hard
when you're going through the stress.
It is hard. Like I remember when I was when I was experiencing derealization, I developed agoraphobia too because I was so scared of everything. Jeff, do you remember I canceled our trip to Florida? I had to drive with you and I couldn't go. Like even that December, I had to go to. There was a trip planned to New York City, which I've always wanted to go to New York City during Christmas. Still haven't been there yet, but I was supposed to go that year. And I canceled because I couldn't go because I had agoraphobia, you know. But to get through to the other side, it takes work. So we'll be talking a lot more about that.
I don't think everybody really like thinks about their coping skills consciously. Like they do them when you go through stress, but I don't think a lot of people we do because we've been through it so many times as far as stressful times in our lives with mental health stuff.
That's kind of part of the problem too, because when you develop negative coping skills, it's like kind of like a subconscious thing.
I just think
in a way, you know,
one thing that most people don't work on improving in their life. They just have them, and then they you know access them when they need to, but they don't actually consciously think about what they are and how to either develop new ones or shift from the negative to positive.
So anyone who's listening to us right now, what are your coping skills? Like positive coping skills? And Jeff, we never got into Jeff's positive coping skills.
Well, that'll be future episodes. We'll talk about like all things coping skills related, I would say. Okay, so we're going to shoot for approximately 20-minute episodes for this podcast, and so the topics and the issues that we're talking about are going to carry over into the next week or next show. I would say the majority of the time, and then we'll just focus on.
We hope you'll join us because there's a lot to talk about. Thank you all for listening. We hope that you'll continue to listen to us because we have a lot to talk about, and we know that
we are barely just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it's just There's a lot to talk about, so stay tuned.
And stay safe, and remember, someone loves you.
And we want to let everybody know out there, take care of yourself.
Take care of others.
Be kind.
And take care of the ones you love.
But also, I want to say, be kind to others, but also be kind to yourself. And remember, we're all in this together.
That's right.
Thank you for listening.
All right, bye, everybody.
And have a happy Thanksgiving.